You're in a doctor's office. They recommend a course of treatment, but something about it feels off. You have questions, but you hesitate. After all, they're the expert, wearing the white coat, so you nod and agree, pushing your doubts aside. Why do we do this? Why does a uniform, a title, or a confident tone of voice have the power to make us suspend our own judgment? This mental shortcut is more common and more dangerous than you might think. This tendency to trust figures of authority is a fundamental part of our psychology. We see it everywhere. We follow financial advice from someone in a sharp suit. We trust a mechanic more if they're wearing a company uniform. We assume the CEO knows the best direction for the company, that the politician knows the best policy, and that the scientist's claims are undeniable. We defer to their perceived expertise. Our brains are wired to use shortcuts. Trusting an expert saves us the time and effort of having to learn everything ourselves. In a complex world, this is often a useful and necessary strategy. But what happens when the expert is wrong? What happens when our instinct to obey leads us down a path we know we shouldn't take? The consequences can be far more serious than we realize. This deep-seated tendency is known as the authority bias. It's our cognitive bias to give more weight and credibility to the opinions of an authority figure, regardless of the actual content of their message. We see signals of authority, and our critical thinking starts to shut down. These signals can be titles like doctor or professor. They can be uniforms, like a police officer's outfit or a pilot's jacket. Even symbols of success, like an expensive car or a fancy office, can trigger our authority bias. We unconsciously associate these symbols with knowledge and trustworthiness. The most famous and chilling demonstration of this bias comes from a series of psychological experiments conducted in the 1960s by Stanley Milgram. In the experiment, a volunteer was assigned the role of a teacher. Their job was to ask questions to a learner who was in another room. The learner was actually an actor. For every wrong answer, the teacher was instructed by an experimenter to deliver an electric shock to the learner. With each mistake, the voltage would increase. The shock machine was fake, but the teacher didn't know that. As the voltage got higher, they would hear the learner cry out in pain, complain of a heart condition, and eventually fall silent. Many teachers became distressed. They would turn to the experimenter, a man in a gray lab coat, and express their desire to stop. They knew they were causing immense pain. But the authority figure would respond with simple, firm commands. He would say, "Please continue," or "The experiment requires that you continue." He never threatened them. He simply asserted his authority. The results were shocking. A staggering 2/3 of the participants continued to deliver the shocks all the way to the maximum level of 450 volts, long after the learner had fallen silent. They obeyed an authority figure, even when it meant violating their own moral compass and potentially harming another human being. The lab coat held more power than their own conscience. Milgram's experiment revealed a dark truth about human nature. Our instinct to obey authority is so powerful that it can override our fundamental sense of right and wrong. This isn't just something that happens in a lab. It happens in boardrooms, where employees are afraid to question a CEO's flawed plan. It happens in hospitals, where nurses hesitate to challenge a doctor's incorrect prescription. It happens when we invest our life savings based on the advice of a confident-sounding financial guru without doing our own research. We outsource our thinking to someone who looks the part. Marketers use this against you all the time. An actor in a lab coat promoting a toothpaste, a celebrity endorsing a skincare product, these are all designed to trigger your authority bias. The danger of this bias is that it encourages passive thinking. It convinces us that we don't need to question, to analyze, or to think for ourselves. We can just follow orders. So why is this bias so deeply ingrained in us? From an evolutionary standpoint, it makes sense. For thousands of years, following the tribe's leader or the wisdom of elders was crucial for survival. Questioning authority could lead to being cast out from the group, which often meant death. Obedience was a survival strategy. Our brains evolved to respect the chain of command. In our modern world, society is built on a foundation of specialized knowledge. We need doctors, pilots, and engineers. We need to trust experts to function. The problem is not expertise itself. The problem is our automatic, uncritical deference to the symbols of expertise. We mistake confidence for competence. The authority bias creates a blind spot. It prevents us from evaluating an idea on its own merits, and instead forces us to evaluate it based on who it came from. So how can you protect yourself from this powerful bias? The solution is to re-engage your critical thinking with two simple questions. First, when faced with an expert's opinion, respectfully ask yourself, is this person truly an expert in this specific field, or are they just an authority in a general sense? Second, and most importantly, ask, what incentives might this person have? Are they selling something? Protecting their reputation? Pushing an agenda? True authority welcomes questions. False authority fears them.